You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Hello, I'm Steven Willis from the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. He is Michael Katz from the Northeast Mississippi Tupelo Daily Journal. And Michael, fall camp was here and it was gone almost before we knew it.
Yeah, it actually did go by extremely fast. I was actually thinking about yesterday. I was like, wait, what day did we start? And then I looked and I was like, oh wow, this is really it. But that means football is here. I've already looked at the 0-week schedule and circled the Delaware State Hawaii game at 10:59 p.m. Central Time. I don't know how I'm gonna get it. I might have to put some tinfoil on my on my TV and try to get it that way, but I will be watching them all.
Well, the problem with that is if you're going to stay up that late, Delaware State missed their flight out of New York to get to Honolulu. And so it's still up in the air if they're going to be able to make it out there. Because it is an FCS program. So
what I mean, it is like the perfect week 0 mess though.
Yes, it absolutely is. And then you have to remember that Vandy put a 60 burger on Hawaii 2 years ago. So
yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's but again, it's it's the same reason I have preseason football on in the background on Thursdays and stuff. It's something. It's on, keeps me busy.
Oh yeah, it's the sound of football. Whenever that rhythm of the play-by-play and the huddle and everything going on, it does just make everything less anxious that's going on. Unless it's your team, you're watching your team and you're rooting that way. But if like whenever the week 0 game between Florida State and Georgia Tech is on, I'm going to be much more at peace during that game than I normally am. It's just that cadence, that voice.
Oh yeah, no, it's gonna be great, and it is nice watching games, knowing that you don't have any, I don't have one to cover later in the day, so I can just hang out, eat some garbage and just enjoy.
So, what were your takeaways from fall camp? It was a weird fall camp because it was that kinder, gentler fall camp. Everybody's worried about Rashad Amos, and that's one of the storylines. Is like, well, he obviously hasn't climbed up the depth chart. Well, he's a bruiser. He's a thumper. If this was an old school 2-a-day type practice where you just beat the heck out of each other, Rashad Amos might look a whole lot different than basically simulating a practice.
Yeah, no, and Lane made that pretty clear. I think it was on the first day when he said, they're kind of doing that pro model sort of thing of just you don't want to be the team that gets a guy hurt right now. And it happens all over the country. It's happened a couple of times. 2 of Texas's running backs have already gone down. You just don't want it to happen. You don't ever want it to happen, but before the season even starts is especially rough. I mean, especially for, the portions that we watched, it was even less of like, it was so hard to tell like what was what, because it's drills. It's a little bit of hand hitting, but not a ton of contact. It's hitting bags and it's running routes against pretty loose coverage. But I will say that at least this isn't surprising, and it seems to have been the theme of the 2 scrimmages they had, is that defensive line is as good as we thought it was going to be. It's one thing to bring in guys like Princely Manuelin and Walter Nolan, and when you already have Jared Ivey and JJ Big East and all these guys, it all looks good on paper, but you never really know how it's going to look until it's actually in action. And it sounds like that group gave Ole Miss's offensive line, which is also retooled, some problems. And it's probably a double-edged sword because, let's be honest, except for a couple games, you're probably not going to see defensive lines as talented as the one that you're going against in practice, and that probably makes everybody better. But they probably like the offensive line to maybe have done a little bit better. But I think if anything, it just speaks to how athletic and deep that defensive front is.
And I had somebody reach out to me over text and everything, trying to explain something they've heard, because, I mean, you understand, whenever people know something, they they try to reach out and let you know. But the thing that reached out to me, and I just want to see if you've heard this similar thing, is there's a good chance that 4 out of the 5 starters on the offensive line are the newcomers.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because, you know, a lot of guys in black jerseys and again, they're moving, they're rotating a lot of stuff during the times that we see, but there have been a lot of instances when you look out there and it looks like, you know, when Jackson Dart is under center and Trey Harris is receiver and it looks like a first team offense, there's a lot of new guys on that offensive line. Yeah, I mean, I mean, there's times when it's, you know, Jaquan Scott, Diego Pounds, and the 2 Washington guys. I mean, it really is. I wouldn't be surprised if that's how it goes. You know, it's hard to gauge when, you know, I feel like they probably already know what they have from the guys that are coming back, and they're probably still trying to figure out what they have in the new guys. But I mean, if the new guys are your best players, like you got to play them. You know, you can't be afraid to hurt feelings. So. You know, having depth and starting experience is really good and important, but I think ultimately, you know, Charlie Weiss Jr. and Lane and John Garrison are going to do what's best for the team on that front for sure.
Yeah, I agree with that. But if you're hearing something similar to that, and yeah, it's one of those things because he did mention also there's almost a hockey line change mentality with them that they're talking like they're going to play more players this year, which that makes sense.
Yeah, and Charlie Weiss said that. You know, he was asked about that. You know, you always think about like a solid 5, and of course, in a perfect world, they can play every snap, but that's just not how it works. And you know, they rotated like 7 or 8 guys last year, and then guys got hurt, and that depth was really, really shortened. So I think that in a perfect world, at least from what Charlie, from what it sounded like, they would love to have 7 or 8 guys that can rotate in and not have that sort of drop off.
Have you guys talked to Brian Brown this fall?
We have not. The only I think the only assistants we've gotten are Pete and Charlie. Yeah, we haven't gotten any position group.
The reason I bring that up is there's been a ton of transfers that came into basically the safeties room, like Yam Banks and Lewis Moore and all of those guys. But I did a video last week of 2 names that nobody is talking about, and that is John Saunders and Trey Washington. Have you heard anything about those guys?
I mean, I see them out there, and you know, there's proof of life. They're definitely out there. And it's actually funny. I don't know if you see, but John Saunders completely cut his hair. His hair was pretty long last year, and we had media days, and I didn't recognize him. I was like, wait, who is this? And someone was like, that's John Saunders. And I was like, oh my God, like, I'm so sorry, John. But no, he's you know, again, I think you know what you have with him and Trey. I think, you know, and especially in this Pete Golding you know, defense, versatility and rotation seems to be really important. Having guys being able to play a lot of different spots. I feel like they know pretty well what they have in Saunders and nickel and Trey, you know, at safety. And I think those guys can sort of move around. And but yeah, I mean, when you've got all of these new guys, again, you know, Amos at corner and Turnage, who has experience at safety and nickel as well. And then, like you said, Yam Banks and you know, Lewis Moore and Key Lawrence, you have all of these new guys. I think, you know, if anything, you're probably trying to figure out where they best fit. And there's probably no better time to do it than before it really starts to matter.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. When we come back, we're going to turn the page a little bit towards Furman, and we're also going to talk about backup quarterbacks with talking with Michael whenever we come back. But first, I do want to let you know, hey, Ole Miss fans, I want to take a moment to give you a heads up on a brand new mobile game that I think you're going to love as much as I do. It's called Ultimate College Football Head Coach, HC. In this amazing game and simulation, you get to step into the shoes of a head coach and lead your college football program to glory. Can you imagine actually being the head coach of Ole Miss? From recruiting players to hiring coaching staff to overseeing training camp or school scholarships, you control every crucial detail of your program. It's all in your hands. Will you be able to handle the pressure? And here's what I really love about the game. You are responsible for calling all the offensive plays during the games. Your strategy will not only determine if you're the success of your football season, but it will shape your future and legacy of the program. Ultimate College Football HC is completely free. It has no ads, 100% playable offline, and you play on the go as you want when you want to do it. And of course, we have a special offer for Locked On Ole Miss fans. Use promo code LOCKEDONCFB, all caps, all one word, inside the game store to receive a free boost to your program. Make sure to take advantage of this because it will get your team off to a great start. To download the game, just visit ultimate-cfb.com, ultimate-cfb.com, or even look it up on the App Store. That's Ultimate College Football HC. Begin your coaching legacy today. Game Time is the place to get your Ole Miss tickets, especially now because all the SEC, I think there's less than 100 Mississippi State tickets that's available between all the SEC tickets being sold out. With killer last-minute deals and all-in prices and views from your seats, they have the guesswork taken out of buying Ole Miss tickets. You know, there's not a bad seat in Vaught-Hemingway Stadium. There's just not. It's not a big enough venue for there to really be a bad seat. But Game Time allows you to see exactly what the view would be from that seat before you buy the ticket. They have the lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss protection. They take the guesswork out of buying those Ole Miss tickets. And with this being the most anticipated season in Ole Miss history, I might be able to help you out with getting tickets as well. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, all one word, for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, Michael, let's turn the page a little bit with Furman coming up because Furman is going to present challenges and things that everybody wants to see, but it's not going to necessarily provide a win or loss challenge. If it does, you got a whole nother set of questions at that point. But before we move into that game, one of the main things that I think the whole Ole Miss fan base wants to see, they want this game to be a blowout. They want to get Jackson Dart out of the game. They want a quarterback to come in off the bench and see who that is. Who do you think that quarterback will be?
You know, again, it's we only see so much, but just from what we see, I mean, you know, maybe it goes seniority for Walker Howard, but Austin Simmons has looked pretty good. He seems, you know, at least in talking to other people on the beat, you know, and again, we don't necessarily know anything, but Austin Simmons seems like he might be ahead, but at the same time, you never really know what's going through their heads. But Austin has been really impressive, and you know, the talent has been there. He's, you know, I know they're worried about his arm with the baseball stuff, but he's got plenty of zip on that thing. You know, that is again, you're not probably worried about the win-loss in that game, but you know, who steps up at quarterback behind Jackson might really be the biggest storyline from that game. But if I had to guess, you know, Walker Howard might be the first guy like off the bench. Maybe, you know, it could be like a Luke Altmaier kind of thing where the guy who's been here longer, you know, gets the first crack at it. But I at least for me personally, I think Austin Simmons has put himself in a really good spot.
Yeah, that's what I've heard as well. I'm really interested about that. Like I said, there's keys in this game, but it's not win-loss keys for Furman. Ole Miss is going to win this game. It's good. They're going to win it pretty handily. And Furman's a good FCS program. They're a playoff team in FCS. I just don't think it's going to matter potentially. What are the other keys that you think that Ole Miss needs to get an answer to the question against Furman?
I mean, I think it's maybe figure out. I don't know if you figured out completely against Furman, but like, what does your running back rotation look like? Who? And again, I know it's situational, and Mercer is not going, or sorry, Furman is not, you know, the SEC teams you are going to play later, but you know, is it Bentley out there getting the majority of the carries because he is the guy who's been here for a few years? Or do you really try to switch it up and see what you have in that entire room with Amos and Henry Parrish? I think that's interesting. Then too, They brought in some new receivers too. Obviously you've got Juice Wells is one that we all talk about, but Micah Davis just got here. He's a guy who's played a lot of football. Listen, you know what you're getting from Trey Harris, you know what you're getting from Jordan Watkins, you know what you're getting from Caden Prieskorn. This might be a good time to figure out what you have in some of these other receivers and your younger receivers. Like Aiden Williams and Caden Lee. Caden Lee came on really strong last year. He looked really, really good. And he kind of gets lost in the shuffle. Same with Aiden Williams, who was, an elite talent coming out of high school. Those guys can still play. It's just a question of like, what is their role? And I think that maybe you learn more about that when you see him, when the bullets start flying.
And the rule changes as well. Is it going to be weird to see a 2-minute warning in college football?
Yeah, no, that actually that really caught me off guard in the NCAA game. I totally forgot it was a thing, and then I was like, 2-minute warning, like what's happening here? And I was like, oh no, that's a thing that's actually about to happen. It's like every time I see the new NFL kickoff, I'm like, oh, this is a thing that I have to get used to now. Also like, how's the headset stuff going to work? I'm really curious to see how that works and how you respond to like what happens if the headsets go down. Do you have the backup plan ready to go right away with the signals and signs and all that stuff? There's a lot of new things, not just personnel wise, that first couple games I think is going to be really interesting.
You think Ole Miss breaks out the new jerseys against Furman?
Ooh,
it's a fan wear white game.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it. I just, again, it's really hard to know what they're doing or what they have planned, but they do look pretty. I mean, if you're going to have the fans dressed that way, you might as well have the team kind of matching them. And the video game already has the new jerseys in there too. I know people are really excited for them. So again, it's Furman. I know it's the first game of the year, but maybe not the most hype around this specific game. Be a way to get people even more excited for it.
And the last time you practiced, there was a helmet change, wasn't there? They were in white.
Yes, there was. It's wardrobe change season. So yeah, I didn't even realize it at first, but yeah, no, they did have they had different helmets. So
they're probably getting used to wearing them for the first game,
Yeah, and now watch, they'll come out in navy blue.
Honestly, I'm gonna be weird. I think that probably the best looking strip that they have, other than their normal traditional reds and blues, because those are my favorite. But I love the navy blue helmet with the all white shirt, jersey, and pants. What they wore against Auburn a year ago. I think that is just a great looking uniform.
We've got a lot of options. They got a lot of options. So
they use them.
Yes. Yes. No, I know. There's a lot of home games. You got to use them all.
Yeah. Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Michael Katz from the Northeast Mississippi Tupelo Daily Journal. Michael, what have you got going on this week as it transitions over to game week?
Yeah, it's crazy that the preseason stuff is over. We start actual game week stuff on Monday, so that's kind of exciting. But I don't want to give too much away, but I got a really cool feature coming out for game day. That is, I write a lot of like player centric stories. This one is not that. It's a very different one for me. It's a little bit more nebulous, but really excited with how it turned out, and I think fans are gonna like it. Other than that, we're gonna have a lot of preview stuff, just looking at the lineups, what Furman does well. I always try to reach out to a beat writer from the other team, so we're going to reach out to them and see what I can learn, so at least I'm not going into the game completely oblivious to what's about to happen.
Yeah, it's absolutely nuts because tomorrow, as we record this on Thursday, tomorrow I'm actually doing my crossover episode for next Thursday with Joe DeLeón to talk about the Furman Paladins. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I look forward to it. Let me know the link and everything. I'm glad to retweet that out. I'm looking forward to it, man.
Sounds good, man. Appreciate you. It's almost football season. We made it. We made it.
We willed it for 6 months and it's finally here.
Yes.
Appreciate it, bud.
All right. Thanks, man.